So I was thinking about and meditating on these 7 truths, and we've been talking about living from them, and I think they bring us to a point of rebirth. They bring us to a point of awareness that doesn't let us go back into our old ways of being. You know, we are born and then reborn as even more of what we came here to be, as even more fully and completely ourselves, more joyful, healthier, more prosperous, more happy in community. We are able to give the gift that we came here to give, the gift that is unique to each one of us. And there's a wonderful story from Kabbalah or mystical Judaism that talks about this idea. Imagine that you're a master artist and you have a fixed amount of gold which you've melted down, and you're about to pour that gold into a mold that will produce a work of art that casts a magical light that will permeate the whole world and produce the highest awareness possible throughout creation. But as you pour this precious gold into the mold, it cracks and the gold runs out and disperses. And the only way you can finish this work of art is to go and collect all those flecks of gold that have scattered themselves all over. But as the gold spreads, the flecks split up and become smaller and smaller and smaller, and each one becomes surrounded by a shell of dust. So you can't even see the gold. All you can see is the dust. And since it's spread everywhere, the only way you can gather it together is to enlist other people, to employ the help of many, many others to collect it. The gold, of course, is the light of divine consciousness that's in each one of us, and each tiny particle of gold is what the Kabbalah calls a spark of holiness. A spark that, if gathered together with all the other sparks, would radiate ultimate awareness. But the only way this most sacred work of art, of awareness, can be finished is for each one of us to raise up the sparks of gold that we find, where we catch a glimpse under the dust and see a glint and raise that spark up out of its dust. And the only way it can be finished is for each of us to realize that everything we see, everyone we see, every rock and every tree and every plant and every animal and every human is a shell of dust that contains sparks of holiness. So our work is to recognize that the earthen shell is just that. All earthen shells are just that. That they are containers hiding, covering up this spark of divine life, and that to realize that in every moment of our lives, no matter what, in every moment of our lives, we have the opportunity to raise those sparks up with loving kindness, with clear awareness, through living in harmony with the universe. And it's to recognize that our earthen vessel, too, is the container of the holy, and to raise up the sparks we find within ourselves, most importantly. This whole process is what the Kabbalah calls tikkun olam, the restoration of the world. So as we raise these sparks of holiness through consciousness, we release them from their shells of dust. And as we do our work from these 7 truths of spiritual power, we are raising sparks all over the place. And as more and more of them are raised and released from their shells of dust, we start to see a kinder world. We start to see more love in our lives. We will ultimately see a world that works for all life. And that is our organization's vision statement. We see a world that works for all life, for everyone, for every plant, for every animal, for everything. And these opportunities to raise the sparks are boundless. They're boundless. Opportunities when we choose our activities, when we choose what we're going to watch on television, when we choose, as pointed out in the Kabbalah, what we eat, for eating is the sacred act. When we choose how we spend our leisure time, when we choose how we relate to one another, whether it's a business associate or a friend or a stranger. Everything in daily life presents us with these husks containing sparks of holiness. And I love this metaphor of the gold poured into the mold and the sparks, because it reminds me that it all counts. It all counts. I don't get to give myself a pass when I'm feeling cranky and the bag boy at the grocery store is slow. I don't get to give myself a pass when I feel like the speed police are out and those people in front of me clogging up every single lane doing 60 in a 70 zone. I don't get to yell at them. You know, I have to remember that they are containers of divine holiness. And I get to raise them up in my prayer and in my consciousness. I get to calm myself down and say, oh yes, even this moment right here, I'm confronted with the opportunity to raise someone up in consciousness and help them polish the dust off the gold that they are. It all counts. When I buy clothes, I think about the sparks they contain, the sparks that the people who made them contain, the sparks of the plants and animals that contributed to their making. All of these thoughts are opportunities to choose to live from these truths of spiritual power, the power of love, the power of oneness, the power to raise awareness in the world. Howard Thurman gave a wonderful graduation address one year, and he talked about this idea in terms of hearing the sound of the genuine within us. He said, there is in every person something that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in herself. There is something in you that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in you. Nobody like you has ever been born, and no one like you will ever be born again. You are the only one. If you cannot hear it, the sound of the genuine in you, you will never find whatever it is for which you are searching. You are the only you that has ever lived. And if you cannot hear the sound of the genuine in you, you will live all of your life. You will spend all of your days on the ends of strings that somebody else pulls. I love that. If we don't listen for that deep voice of the genuine, of the power that is within each one of us, we wind up being pulled by the strings of the outer world, of the common everyday world. We get pulled into resentment. We get pulled into judgment. We get pulled into boredom. We get pulled into separation from one another, into that deep soul ache of loneliness. That deep voice says to us, look inside yourself and find that glimmer of gold. Look into the eyes of that person next to you and find that spark of holiness. Look into all that you do and see that it is merely an earthen vessel for something powerful and beautiful. Speak to that glimmer in yourself and raise it up. Watch it emerge and connect that glimmer, your glimmer, to the glimmer in the world around you, and step into your own true nature, your divine nature. That's what I think it means to be spiritually reborn, is to just realize that we and everyone else, we and all life, is all one. It's all the same. It is everywhere we look. This thing that is within you, this genuine, is yearning for connection, for expression, for connection with the divine everywhere. With the divine everywhere. And I read something that said that the yearning itself is its own answer, because we follow our yearning for connection with the divine into connection with the divine. The yearning is its own answer. We connect by letting that spark of divinity within ourselves touch the spark of divinity within another, or in an animal, or a mountain, or a flower, or a lake, or whatever it is that we see. And so when we start to view life through the lens of these principles of spiritual power, we will be drawn to some really countercultural ideas. So be prepared. Countercultural, because our culture is not one that prizes conscious awareness. It prizes prestige, money, possessions, status,